The Atlantic spread endless and gray, its horizon blurred by mist. The seeker of truth stood at the ship's bow, staring into the rolling fog. The Mary Celeste had been sighted adrift, her sails hanging loose, her motion eerie. Captain Briggs' vessel had been strong, yet it now moved like a ghost, lifeless and hollow. Jonathan Hale whispered, "What secrets do you carry?" His voice cracked in the cold air. The crew of the Dea Gratia, seasoned men hardened by salt and storm, watched uneasily. No storm had touched the Celeste, yet she floated, abandoned. No signals, no smoke. First Mate Samuel Richardson muttered. Jonathan Hale stepped forward, boots clanging against wet wood, heart heavy. He felt the chill of silence, unnatural and wrong. "We'll board her," Captain Robert Gray said, voice sharp with unease. Jonathan felt the weight of centuries as though unseen eyes lingered in the mist. He thought of stories whispered in taverns, of cursed voyages and vanished souls. But nothing prepared him for this moment. The ship loomed closer, sails flapping weakly, hull creaking. The silence deepened, and the truth felt closer, yet darker. Jonathan Hale stepped onto the Celeste's deck. The wood felt damp, cold, and strangely lifeless. He glanced around, heart pounding. No crew, no movement, only silence. "Where are they?" he muttered. Captain Robert Gray followed, boots thudding sharply. The deck smelled faintly of stale water, the sails flapped weakly. A table inside the cabin was set for a meal, plates untouched, bread hardened. Jonathan whispered, "They left in haste." Samuel Richardson shook his head. "But why abandon a ship still seaworthy?" Their voices felt swallowed by the emptiness. Jonathan brushed his hand along a wall, damp and chilled. He thought of lives cut short, of mysteries unsolved. A clock ticked faintly, though no one wound it. The silence pressed down. His breath quickened. He muttered, "The sea keeps secrets it never should." The ship groaned, as though alive. Captain Robert Gray opened the logbook, its ink smudged but intact. He squinted, muttering, "Last entry dated 10 days ago." His voice carried unease. Jonathan Hale leaned closer, eyes narrowing. "Why stop writing?" Samuel Richardson crossed his arms, muttering, "Fear, maybe." Jonathan traced the page with his finger, letters blurred. His mind swirled with possibilities. Storm, mutiny, something darker. "They vanished without leaving their story," he whispered. A lantern swung overhead, its faint light flickering. Shadows stretched unnaturally across the wall. Jonathan felt as if the very wood whispered. A chill ran through him. "The sea hides, but I will uncover," he muttered. Captain Gray slammed the book shut, breathing hard. The silence returned, heavier, almost hostile. Jonathan Hale entered the crew quarters. Hammocks swayed gently, though no one lay within. A child's toy carved from wood rested on the floor. He crouched, fingers brushing it. "They left in haste," he whispered. Samuel Richardson stood at the door, voice low, "This ship feels wrong." Jonathan nodded, throat tight. Dust floated in the thin light, streaming through a cracked window. The silence felt alive, pressing. A blanket was half folded, as if abandoned mid-motion. Jonathan thought of families, of laughter silenced. "They were here," he muttered. He straightened, scanning the emptiness. His eyes narrowed, hot, hammering. Something unseen pressed against him, a weight of presence without sound. On the deck, Jonathan Hale gazed across the endless sea. The fog thickened, swallowing the horizon. He gripped the railing, eyes narrowed. "No lifeboat," he said grimly. Captain Robert Gray joined, arms crossed. "They left, but how?" Samuel Richardson muttered, "No storm could scatter them." Jonathan felt the sea's silence press against him, suffocating. He thought of myths, ghosts, curses, lost souls. The Celeste groaned beneath their weight, its timbers sighing. He whispered, "The truth waits here, buried." A gull shrieked, slicing through the silence. Jonathan's heart pounded. He knew this was only the beginning, and the mystery ran deeper than any storm. Jonathan Hale sat in the captain's quarters of the Celeste, candlelight flickering against damp wood. He opened a drawer, revealing charts and letters. The ink had blurred, yet the words hinted at storms faced, fears whispered. He whispered, "They knew something." Captain Robert Gray leaned in, his voice low. "These logs mention no danger, no mutiny, no reason to flee." Samuel Richardson muttered, "Then they left for something unseen." The shadows twisted across the walls, and Jonathan felt the weight of history pressing. He traced the paper with trembling fingers, thinking of lives entwined with this mystery. He thought of Captain Briggs, his family, his crew, each vanished without leaving a word. His chest tightened. "Ghosts linger in silence," Jonathan said quietly. He felt more than mystery, it was grief made tangible. Outside, the sea whispered against the hull like a cruel reminder of secrets swallowed. Jonathan turned the logbook pages slowly, his eyes narrowing at a note scribbled faintly. "They spoke of water barrels spoiled," he whispered. Robert Gray frowned. "That would not drive men from a ship." Richardson shook his head. "It sounds like fear, not hunger." The room grew colder, silence deepening like an unseen hand pressing them down. Jonathan thought of how small choices led to fate's cruelty. "They faced something more," he muttered. He saw Briggs' name, signed in hurried scrawl. A tremor ran through him. The man recorded his life, until the day it was ripped from him. His voice cracked in the silence. Gray slammed a fist onto the desk, frustration spilling. "Men don't vanish," he growled. Jonathan felt the shadows lean closer, as though the ship itself listened. He thought of secrets etched between every line, a story half told, half buried. The crew searched deeper, opening chests, pulling blankets, uncovering small relics of vanished lives. Jonathan picked up a woman's shawl, the fabric fragile, scented faintly of sea and dust. "They left too quickly," he whispered. Richardson muttered, "Families don't leave food uneaten, beds unmade, toys abandoned." Gray exhaled sharply, eyes stormy. Jonathan's heart pounded as he imagined the lives that had once filled these spaces. He saw Briggs' wife's name embroidered on the shawl. His voice shook. This was her hand. His eyes darkened with sorrow. The silence felt cruel, a theft of presence. The wood groaned as though it mourned. Jonathan held the shawl close, almost reverently. "This ship carries grief as much as wood," he muttered. Gray turned sharply away, unwilling to show his trembling hands. The seeker of truth felt the Celeste breathing with memory. Jonathan Hale stepped onto the deck, clutching the shawl. The fog swirled thicker, wrapping the ship in an unnatural veil. He felt the air heavy, suffocating, as if voices lingered. Richardson's eyes darted nervously. "This place, it feels watched." Robert Gray muttered, "Enough superstition. We need facts." Jonathan ignored them, closing his eyes briefly. He thought of stories told in ports. Ghost ships, vanishing crews, cursed voyages. His jaw tightened. He whispered, "The Celeste holds more than timber. It carries sorrow." The sea slapped against the hull, rhythmic and haunting. Above, sails creaked as though stirred by unseen hands. Jonathan opened his eyes, resolve sharpening. "If truth hides here, I will find it," he said firmly. The silence answered with a groan of wood and a shriek of gulls that made them all stiffen. As night fell, Jonathan Hale sat alone in the captain's chair, the shawl resting on his lap. A lantern swung, shadows crawling along the cabin walls. His eyes burned with obsession. "Truth waits in the cracks," he muttered. His mind returned to every fragment. Spoiled water, a broken family, silence louder than thunder. Robert Gray entered, frowning. "You drive yourself too far," he warned. Jonathan didn't respond, his gaze fixed on the logbook. Richardson leaned in from the doorway, voice low. "We should leave before we share their fate." Jonathan's lips curled into a thin smile. "Not yet. I must hear the silence until it speaks." His voice quivered, haunted. Gray shook his head and left. The cabin groaned as if alive. Jonathan whispered into the dark, "This ship breathes sorrow, and I'll draw it out." Jonathan Hale stood in the captain's quarters, the shawl folded on the table. A voice cut through the silence, sharp and measured. Professor Edmund Blackwood entered, his calm presence unsettling. He said, "This mystery is not yours to solve." Jonathan turned, startled, his jaw tight. Robert Gray's eyes narrowed with suspicion while Richardson shifted uneasily. Jonathan replied, "You've no right to silence truth." Blackwood smiled faintly, but his gaze was ice. Some truths were never meant to surface. Jonathan felt anger rise, his obsession clashing with the man's composure. The room thickened with tension, as though the ship itself strained at their words. Blackwood's tone grew firm, "Leave it, or lose yourselves to it." Jonathan whispered, "I won't turn away." Blackwood placed gloved hands on the logbook, his movements deliberate. "Knowledge destroys as easily as it saves," he said coldly. Jonathan snapped, "Silence protects lies." Gray growled, "And who made you master of truth?" Blackwood's lips curved slightly. "Experience. I've seen men undone by knowledge they could not bear." Richardson shifted, whispering, "This is wrong." Jonathan felt fury coil inside. The man was hiding something, guarding a secret with steel calm. Jonathan leaned closer, voice low, "You're afraid of what I'll uncover." Blackwood's gaze flickered, but his tone never wavered. "Curiosity kills, Mr. Hale. Walk away." The lantern light trembled, shadows stretching like claws. Jonathan's chest tightened, his resolve sharpened. "I will not stop." Jonathan paced the deck, fury burning under his skin. Fog pressed close, muting sea and sky. Blackwood followed, calm and deliberate. "The Celeste is not a mystery, it is a grave," he said. Jonathan spun, eyes fierce. "Then why bury it deeper?" Blackwood's gaze hardened. "Because the truth will undo you." Gray stepped between them, his voice sharp, "Enough riddles. Speak plain." Blackwood only smiled faintly, offering no answer. Richardson muttered, "This is madness." Jonathan's heart pounded. He felt the sea breathing, the ship groaning, as though listening to their clash. He pointed at Blackwood, voice trembling, "You know more than you say, and I will drag it into light." Blackwood's silence cut sharper than words. Below deck, lantern light cast eerie glows across damp beams. Blackwood led them toward a locked chest. "Here lies what you seek," he said quiet. Jonathan's breath caught. Gray frowned. "Why hide it?" Blackwood replied, "To protect you." Jonathan knelt, prying the lock. Inside lay journals, weathered and fragile. He whispered, "Captain Briggs' hand." Blackwood's face darkened. "Close it, some knowledge burns." Jonathan ignored him, scanning pages quickly. His heart raced at cryptic notes of fear, strange lights, silence spreading across the sea. He muttered, "He knew." Blackwood's hand shot forward, slamming the book shut. "Leave it buried." Jonathan recoiled, but his eyes blazed with determination. The tension reached its breaking point. On deck again the fog pressed in thick waves. Jonathan held the journal tight, defiance burning. Blackwood faced him, calm but rigid. "You meddle with forces beyond you?" he said. Jonathan's voice rang sharp, "Truth is never beyond me." Gray growled, "Both of you, this is tearing us apart." Richardson muttered prayers under his breath, fear clouding his face. Jonathan raised the book, trembling. "This holds their fate." Blackwood's expression froze, voice like ice, "And it holds your doom." Jonathan's heart hammered, yet he whispered fiercely, "Then I'll pay the price." The gulls cried overhead, their voices sharp against the suffocating silence of sea and mist. Night pressed heavy upon the Mary Celeste. The lantern swung weakly, shadows crawling across damp planks. Jonathan Hale stood on deck, his mind racing with fragments of Briggs' journals. "One Yule." His thoughts were broken by Dr. Elias Grayson, a man once skeptical of sea tales. His arrival on the Celeste was unexpected, yet his sharp eyes studied every detail. Grayson said softly, "You're chasing ghosts, Jonathan." Jonathan turned, fire in his gaze. "No, I'm chasing truth." Captain Robert Gray frowned, muttering, "This ship is more curse than vessel." Samuel Richardson crossed his arms, unease in his stance. Grayson shook his head, though his voice carried caution more than disbelief. "Truth has its cost. Do not pay it blindly." Jonathan whispered, "The cost is already upon us." The sea groaned in reply, as if it agreed. Below deck, the silence deepened. Jonathan pressed Grayson with questions, his voice fierce. "Why follow us here?" Grayson sighed, his tone reluctant. "Because I studied these waters, and what you seek has ruined men before." Jonathan's jaw tightened. "You think me a fool chasing shadows." Grayson shook his head, whispering, "I think you're already drowning in them." Robert Gray scowled. "You brought knowledge, Doctor. Speak it plain." Richardson muttered, "We don't need riddles in this darkness." Grayson's hands trembled as he unfolded faded sketches of lights over water drawn by sailors long dead. Jonathan's heart pounded, whispering, "So they saw it too." Grayson's eyes burned with quiet fear. "Some truths are poison," he said, "and I fear you've already drunk." Jonathan traced the sketches, his breath shallow. "They saw the same lights Briggs wrote of," he whispered. Grayson nodded, his tone hushed. "And those who chased them never returned." Blackwood stepped into the lantern glow, his calm voice slicing through. "Exactly why this pursuit must end." Jonathan's rage flared. "You hide what you know." Blackwood smirked. "I protect what must remain buried." Gray slammed a hand against the beam, frustration burning. "This ship is tearing us apart." Richardson muttered, "And it listens as we fight." Jonathan clutched the sketches, whispering fiercely, "Knowledge won't be smothered by fear." Grayson sighed, his expression torn. "I'll help you, Jonathan, but only because leaving you blind would be worse." The air seemed to tremble at his words. The group moved back to the deck, fog curling like claws. Jonathan spoke of what they found, his voice urgent. Briggs feared lights in the sky. Grayson's jaw tightened. "Not lights, warnings." Blackwood chuckled low. "Men cling to superstition when truth is unbearable." Gray glared, his patience waning. Richardson whispered, "I feel watched." Jonathan stepped closer to Grayson, voice firm. "You doubt, yet you stand with me." Grayson sighed, nodding reluctantly. "I'll guide you, but tread carefully." Blackwood's eyes narrowed. "You doom yourselves." Jonathan ignored him, clutching the journal. He whispered, "The sea speaks, and I'll hear it." The sails groaned above, mist swallowing sound, as though the Celeste herself approved the defiance. Jonathan leaned against the railing, sea mist wetting his face. He whispered, "The truth is near." Grayson joined him, reluctant yet firm. "I'll help, but only if you listen to caution." Jonathan smirked faintly. "Caution bends when truth demands." Behind them, Blackwood's shadow lingered, his voice cutting cold. "Your ally cannot save you from the storm you summon." Gray muttered, "This is madness." Richardson's eyes flicked nervously between them all. Jonathan tightened his grip on the journal, feeling the Celeste tremble faintly beneath his feet. He whispered, "Every secret leaves a trace." Grayson sighed heavily but stood by him, unwilling yet resolute. Blackwood's gaze darkened, his words venom. "Then your blood is the ink that will write this tale." The sea roared, swallowing his voice into the night. Jonathan Hale stood in the lower cabin, lantern swinging faintly. His eyes burned over Briggs' final notes, whispers of lights and fear etched in haste. Grayson placed a hand on his shoulder, quiet but firm. "This pursuit consumes you," he said. Jonathan replied, "It consumes us all." Blackwood lingered nearby, smirk playing on his lips. "You see, madness grows when truth is chased too far." Gray growled, Madness is silence, not search. Richardson shifted nervously, avoiding Jonathan's gaze. Jonathan narrowed his eyes, sensing unease. "What do you hide, Samuel?" he asked coldly. Richardson froze, his voice faltering. "Nothing. Only fear." Jonathan's suspicion deepened, the shadows pressing closer, the Celeste groaning like it carried secrets heavy as stone. On the deck, the fog thickened, lanterns glowing weak against it. Jonathan faced Richardson, voice sharp. "You hesitate too often." Richardson's hands shook as he muttered, "I only wish to survive." Gray stepped between them, frustrated. "We all do." Blackwood's voice cut in smoothly. "Doubt festers because truth divides." Grayson shook his head. "No, truth binds if men choose courage." Jonathan's glare held on Richardson. "Courage or betrayal, Samuel? Which one drives you?" Richardson's jaw tightened, but words failed him. Silence deepened, broken only by the waves. Jonathan whispered, "I'll know before long." Blackwood's smirk grew darker, eyes fixed on the crew like a spider waiting for prey to stumble. In the quarters, Jonathan confronted Richardson alone. Shadows stretched long, lanterns flickering low. Jonathan's voice was sharp as a blade. "You lead me astray, don't you?" Richardson stammered, "I've done nothing." Jonathan's eyes burned with distrust. "You hesitate at every turn. You knew of Briggs' fear before I read it." Richardson's face paled, sweat glistening. "I only guessed." Jonathan slammed the table. "No, you knew." Silence thickened, suffocating. Outside, the sea moaned like an echo of judgment. Richardson whispered, "You don't understand." Jonathan leaned close, words fierce. "Then make me." But Richardson turned away, his silence damning. Jonathan felt betrayal settle like a knife between his ribs. "I'll go one's accidents, Ganleys." "Oh." Jonathan stormed onto the deck, journal clutched tightly. Gray approached, concern etched in his face. What did he confess? Jonathan growled, "Enough to poison trust." Grayson stood nearby, eyes troubled. "He's broken, Jonathan, not treacherous." Blackwood chuckled softly. "A broken man is easier to bend." Jonathan turned sharply on him. "And you bend him, don't you?" Blackwood's smile deepened, but his silence was answer enough. The sails flapped like whispers, the fog pressing in heavy. Richardson remained below, the weight of accusation holding him prisoner. Jonathan whispered, "If betrayal lurks among us, it will surface soon." His eyes blazed with fire, defiance consuming him as the Celeste moaned like a warning in the night. The storm within the crew broke fully when Richardson emerged from below. His face pale, his voice shaking. "I cannot hide it anymore." Jonathan's heart pounded, his hand tightening around the journal. Gray barked, "Speak plain, man." Richardson's eyes filled with grief. "I feared this voyage from the start. I knew Briggs heard whispers of men vanishing, and I carried that fear here." Jonathan's voice was bitter. "And you led us into the same trap." Richardson's shoulders slumped. "I never wished betrayal, only escape." Blackwood's eyes gleamed. "Fear is betrayal, and you've given it form." Grayson sighed heavily. "This ship is turning us all into ghosts." Jonathan's jaw tightened as he whispered, "Then we'll fight the darkness, even if it lives among us." The sea lay still, an eerie calm stretching beneath the fog. Jonathan Hale stood at the railing, journal pressed to his chest. His thoughts churned with doubt when a faint voice broke the silence. From the mist emerged a figure, cloaked and hooded, stepping aboard without sound. The crew froze, eyes wide with disbelief. The stranger lifted their head, revealing a weathered face, eyes burning with secrets. "You seek the Celeste's truth," the figure said, voice low. Jonathan's heart thudded. "Who are you?" The man smirked faintly, replying, "An echo of those who came before." Gray balked. "Speak plain, stranger." The figure shook his head slowly. I bring warnings, not answers. Richardson whispered, trembling. Another ghost. Jonathan narrowed his eyes. Then, speak your warning. Elias Thorne's eyes gleamed as he moved slowly across the deck. His voice carried like a whisper of wind. The Celeste carries echoes of the vanished, and their voices linger in silence. Jonathan asked, You've seen them? Thorne nodded grimly. Long ago I sailed near her. Men vanished from my ship too. Gray's brow furrowed. Why return here now? Thorne's gaze hardened. The silence follows me still. Richardson shivered, muttering prayers. Grayson whispered, This ship draws the lost back to it. Jonathan stepped closer, defiance burning. If there is truth, I will drag it from shadows. Thorne's lips curved in a sad smile. Be careful, seeker. The sea takes those who listen too long. His words cut like waves against stone. Jonathan demanded, What took them, Thorne? The old man's eyes darkened, his tone hushed. Not storm, not hunger. Something older, watching from sea and sky. Blackwood scoffed, madness dressed in myth. Thorne turned sharply, voice cutting. You hide because you know. Blackwood's jaw tightened, his silence betraying unease. Gray growled, Enough riddles. Thorne stepped closer to Jonathan, whispering, The truth is not in words but in what you feel when silence grips you. Jonathan's chest tightened, his obsession deepening. Grayson muttered, He warns, but every warning tempts you further. Richardson's breath grew ragged. Jonathan whispered, Then silence will speak to me. Thorne's gaze burned, sorrowful and grim. The fog thickened until lanterns dimmed, their light swallowed whole. Thorne lifted his hand, pointing skyward. Above the mist, faint glowing arcs shimmered, like pale fire. The crew gasped, voices falling silent. Jonathan's breath caught. Briggs wrote of this. Thorne whispered, The sea and sky burn with warnings, men never heed. Gray muttered, Illusion, nothing more. Grayson's voice cracked. No, it's what sailors feared for generations. Blackwood's eyes narrowed, cold and unreadable. Richardson trembled, clutching the railing. Jonathan's heart pounded, his voice trembling. It's the truth they died for, Thorne whispered, or the lie they drowned in. The lights pulsed once, then faded into mist, leaving only silence that weighed heavier than any storm. As silence returned, Thorne's voice was low, heavy with sorrow. The Celeste drifts not as ship, but as tomb. Follow too far, and you join the vanished. Jonathan's jaw clenched, fire blazing in his eyes. Then I will walk the path they left behind. Gray shouted, Madness! Grayson grabbed Jonathan's arm. Don't let obsession blind you. Blackwood sneered, He is already blind. Richardson shook his head violently, whispering, We should flee. Thorne's gaze lingered on Jonathan, deep with regret. You carry their burden now. Whether you drown or rise is yours alone. With that, he stepped back into the fog, his figure swallowed by night. Jonathan whispered into the silence, I'll uncover it, even if it takes me whole. The night clung heavy around the Mary Celeste, silence crushing every sound. Jonathan Hale sat hunched in the captain's cabin, journal trembling in his hands. His breath was shallow, his eyes wild. Captain Robert Gray entered, voice sharp. Enough, Hale. This will drown you. Jonathan shook his head violently. It is already in my blood. Dr. Elias Grayson leaned forward, pleading, Jonathan, you must stop before truth consumes you. Samuel Richardson muttered in the corner, eyes hollow, We are ghosts already. From the shadows, Professor Edmund Blackwood whispered coldly, At last you see it. Jonathan slammed the journal shut, his voice cracking. No, I see the end, and I will not turn away. Jonathan staggered onto the deck, fog pressing thick around him. The sea groaned beneath the ship like a living thing. Above, the sky shimmered faintly, arcs of ghostly light blooming across the mist. Grayson gasped, voice breaking, It's real! Gray growled, "Illusions, nothing more." Richardson fell to his knees, whispering prayers. Jonathan's heart pounded as he raised the journal. This is what Briggs saw. This is why they vanished. Blackwood's voice cut sharp. "And you will vanish too." Jonathan whispered, "Then I'll vanish with truth in my grasp." The light flared brighter, painting the ship in pale fire. Silence pressed heavier, suffocating yet alive. The ship groaned, timbers rattling as if alive. Jonathan shouted over the silence. They were taken, not by storm, but by this presence. Gray barked, "Madness." Grayson whispered, "I feel it, like breath in the air." Richardson cried out, clutching his head, "They call to us." Jonathan turned, eyes blazing. "Yes, they call, and I must answer." Blackwood stepped forward, voice venomous. "Answer, and you'll damn us all." Jonathan's hand trembled as he placed the journal against the mast, whispering, "Their voices are written in silence." The lights pulsed once more, brighter than before. For a moment, every face froze, illuminated by unnatural glow. The lights dimmed suddenly, leaving only suffocating fog. Silence fell thicker than before, pressing into their lungs. Jonathan dropped to his knees, tears streaking his face. "I heard them," he whispered. "They begged for release." Grayson crouched beside him, voice soft. "Then let it go, Jonathan." Gray shook his head, muttering, "He is lost." Richardson sobbed, "They're still here." Blackwood's eyes gleamed with cruel satisfaction. "And now you carry their curse." Jonathan's voice rose, broken but fierce. "No curse, only truth." The ship moaned, timbers cracking, as if in pain. Jonathan clutched the journal close, whispering, "Their story will not vanish." His voice trembled with sorrow and resolve. Dawn crept slowly, pale light spilling across the Celeste. Jonathan stood alone at the bow, eyes hollow yet burning with determination. Behind him the crew stood silent, each man broken in his own way. Grayson whispered, "We cannot undo what we saw." Gray muttered, "We should have left her to drift." Richardson stared blankly, whispering prayers. Blackwood spoke last, his tone smooth, cold. "The Celeste will claim more, and you will return to finish what you began." Jonathan gripped the railing, wind cold against his face. He whispered to himself, "I have heard the voices. I will carry their truth." The sea shimmered faintly, as though it still remembered. The Mary Celeste groaned, drifting onward, eternal in her silence.